Hello, welcome to Daniel Lee Plastering and Rendering YouTube channel. And today we are repairing some very mouldy walls. So it's actually a house we rendered at the beginning of the year, had severely badly damaged render, which has caused huge damp and mould issues. It'd been going on for years, so we applied 100mm insulation to the external walls of the property after removing all the contaminated render, complete with a full coloured silicone thinker render system over the top. And we've allowed it all to dry out internally as well, and now we are cracking on removing the contaminated plaster on the internal walls. So yes, enjoy.
So you can see here very strong signs of damp. If you can't recognise that, those dark spots are all damp, and this actually had been replastered at an earlier date. I don't know exactly when, the customer's not sure when it was done, but the entire plaster had delaminated where they had plastered over the damp, and you can see there the bubbles. That's the effervescence or the salts, where it's getting, where the moisture is just saturating that wall, and it's the salts in the rainwater coming through there. Yes, when you see the sort of effervescence or the salts, that's a very strong warning sign that action is required. And you see, this is, I should point out, this has all been dealt with, it's dried out, and these are now residual stains. So they have been treated. The outside render was the cause, and that has been fixed. You can see the damp was so bad, it's actually rusted a galvanized internal angle bead, and you can see it bleeding through there. So that will need to be cut out and removed. You can see the signs of damp there. So first thing we do, as always, protect the floors with our lovely polythene. So there's our sticky floor protector. This is a special floor protector. This one's for windows, but it's also very good for hardwood floors. This will help keep everything protected. But that on its own, it's a bit thin, so we like to also add a sheet of tarpaulin. And because we're actually going to be removing a lot of this render, a lot of this internal plaster, we've protected thoroughly with some boards. Unfortunately, a lot of these damp stains, they've actually, the plaster has softened and crumbled away from the brick, which is actually a bit difficult to see on this when looking. But we can tell when we knock on it and it sounds a bit hollow. So we need to remove all the areas of blown or soft internal plastering to make sure that everything we do is going to last. Because we do guarantee all our work. I say it all the time. All our work comes with a guarantee, and it just helps give the customers their peace of mind, and it also it's sort of an extra incentive to make sure we do the best possible job that's going to last the longest time it can. So you can see there, with removing all the loose stuff, there is a very large chunk of this wall that's actually completely sound and solid. But we will be cutting out that angle bead.
We've got some nasty rust on this bead. And once a galvanised bead started to rust, it needs to be cut out and replaced. There's no saving it. So the first thing we do is pencil line a nice straight section of the bead in question. In this case, just this section. Then angle grind it up. Don't try this at home. You will notice I've not got the safety cover on. I do find it gets in the way with this, so I keep it off. But I do have these. Ooh. And this. Sorry.
some dust. The neatest and tidiest way I found of removing these beads is to simply mark it out with a straight edge or spirit level and a pencil and cut it with an angle grinder. An angle grinder will cut through the angle beads, the metal angle beads, really neatly and allow you to just patch them up beautifully. And then get my trusty demolition hammer to remove the remaining plaster. And it also gives you a very neat, tidy line as well. That reveal, unfortunately, was completely blown as well. So that needed to be removed. And there are a few other sections as well that had a couple metal beads in it that needed to come out. They had actually battened a couple of the walls there, which was very good. So they've also vacuum as we go. It's very important to keep on top of all of the mess. It's looking quite good there.
So we fixed the damp issues, which were caused from severely blown render that was just creating horrendous issues. It's in definite need of removal. So that was all fixed and repaired, but unfortunately, because it had been going on for quite a few years, the internal plaster had become contaminated with mould, damp over a prolonged period and started to delaminate, is probably the best word, from the wall in places. Not everywhere, but there was some very bad areas in parts. So all the areas that are blown loose or a little bit suspect, we're going to remove back to brick. And because it's damp, or it's actually dried out now, but it has left some stains. I would always recommend, instead of just PVA, or I mean, I don't really use PVA anymore, but even SBR, which is great stuff, I do like that. I would use a primer that has a stabilizing solution in it as well, and that will help with any damp stainage, anything like that, really stop it coming through. Because the last thing you want is old damp or old moisture spots bleeding through your plaster, which can happen if you were to just PVA over the top of, say, an old, now dry damp spot. Because they can dry out but leave a stain, and the stains, unless treated correctly, can bleed through the plaster and in turn the paint as well. So I always recommend using a stabilizing solution. Luckily there's lots of primers out there, and there are plenty out there which have stabilizing solution incorporated into the gluey primer, which is ideal. So we'll be using that over the brickwork.
So you can see Hayden, our wonderful apprentice plasterer in the making there, working away. So with the brickwork, we've used because it's quite rough brickwork, we've used the paintbrush for most of it. You can see we've got quite a decent thick coverage. And this is a brilliant one, this is one of my favourite stabilising solutions. It's quite, once you do have to give it a quick mix with the drill before you use it, but it's plenty, it rollers on quite nicely. There we are, you can see how very careful and thorough he's being. This is a lovely little little handy patch repair this. Now you'll see there, it's a bit of metal with basically sticky mesh, and there is a hole in the wall that was actually appeared to be an old dead socket, and where that's actually just a stud wall, it just sticks to the side, so we've just stuck it over. So simple, very, very nice and easy. And now it's all dried. You do need to leave the stabilising solution at least an hour, sometimes longer. It's quite dry, it's quite warm, so it's dried quite quickly. And now we're mixing up the undercoat plaster. We're using hard wall for this one, which is great for sort of medium sections. Practicing my skills. If anyone wants to give it a go, it's actually incredibly easy, so it's not actually that much of a skill at all, but it's still fun to have a play. Oh, he's mixing hard. Gotta have a bit of fun at work. So as always, start at the top and work your way down. Now, if I hadn't primed this undercoat plaster would have sucked into that brickwork and dried and cracked on me within seconds. So that's another very, very good reason for priming and all stabilising all of the brickwork. And also, as this is a partial repair, we are having to use the existing wall to help straighten the new wall. And as the existing wall, unfortunately, is quite old and moved and not very straight, it does add an extra sort of element to it. So not what I would recommend for beginners, this one. But we're getting over it nicely there. It's all going very well. So we like to... And you'll notice here, Kris is after a boat level, and he's got one in my trusty toolbox, except I've accidentally mitre glued it to the box, or rather, one of my super glues tipped over and leaked all over, and it's inadvertently glued my little boat level. But luckily, Kris gyms regularly and is super strong, and he's managed to rip it out. Yep, that's the glue. Sorry about that. And now, as it pulls in a bit, so after you've applied it, once it starts to firm up and feels a bit touch dry, you can get over it with what we call a devil float, or it's basically a plastic float with some nails poking through. This helps just add a little extra key for the top coat plaster, and it also allows you just to check the wall slightly, press all the hard wall plaster in and flatten it off a little. And that is looking very good there, ready for the, obviously not finished, but looking very ready for the final coat of plaster. And that is all the prep work done there. I hope you found this useful and entertaining. Please do like and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.